The sun beat down on the old shipping yard, where forgotten crates lay stacked like giant rusted tombs. Birds circled high overhead, calling out over the silence. The place had long been abandoned, used only for auctions of scrap that nobody cared about anymore. Among the rows of silent containers, a young man named Daniel walked slowly, his boots crunching over broken gravel. He had no money worth speaking of, only a single crumpled dollar note in his pocket. He wasn't here to find treasure. He was here out of boredom and maybe a little desperation. The auctioneer shouted half-heartedly about the old boxes, pointing at each container with little interest. Most of the buyers were junk dealers who wanted metal to melt down or scraps to sell. The containers were sold for almost nothing, and people laughed as they bid pennies. Daniel stood near the edge, staring at one container that looked older than the rest. Its surface was dark brown with patches of rust, its corners dented and marked with symbols that didn't match any shipping company logo he knew. There was something strange about it, something that made him feel like it didn't belong. The crowd ignored that one, calling it worthless. When the auctioneer finally gestured at it, nobody raised a hand. The man cleared his throat and asked, $1? Anyone? Take it off the lot. Daniel, half as a joke and half because he felt drawn, raised his hand. The crowd chuckled. Sold, $1. The auctioneer laughed, slapping his book closed. People shook their heads. Daniel had wasted $1 on junk. Later, as the sun dipped lower, Daniel borrowed a crowbar from one of the scrapmen and walked to the container. The air around it felt different, cooler, almost humming. He pressed his hand against the metal and swore he felt a faint vibration, like the heartbeat of something alive inside. His chest tightened. What had he just bought? He wedged the crowbar into the seam of the rusted door and pushed hard. The lock snapped with a sharp metallic crack, and the doors groaned open. Dust and light spilled in, and Daniel froze where he stood. Inside, faint blue light glowed from smooth crystalline panels along the walls. The container wasn't a container at all. It was a capsule, a chamber of technology far beyond anything Earth had built. His eyes widened as he stepped closer, his boots echoing softly on the strange metallic floor. Rows of pods lined the interior, sleek and curved, glowing faintly with energy. Within each pod lay a figure. At first, he thought they were statues. But as his eyes adjusted, he realized they were women, tall, elegant, their skin glowing faint shades of green, blue, violet, and crimson. Their hair flowed like liquid silver, resting across their shoulders. Their eyes were closed, their faces calm, as if they were sleeping. Each of them wore simple garments, smooth and fitted, like uniforms made of some strange fabric. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. He counted 6 in total. 6 alien women, sleeping as if frozen in time. Their beauty was beyond anything human, every line of their faces carved with perfect grace. They weren't just aliens. They looked like royalty, like princesses from a forgotten world. He staggered back, nearly dropping the crowbar. His mind raced. Was this a prank? No, the glow of the technology, the hum of the air, the faint mist curling from the pods, it was all real. He pressed closer to one of the pods, peering through the glass-like surface. The girl inside had emerald green skin, her lips slightly parted as if she were breathing. His hand trembled as he placed it on the surface. The glass was warm. And then it happened. The pod flickered with light. Symbols glowed along its edges, shifting and moving like living script. A faint hiss filled the container, and the glass slid open with a smooth motion. Mist poured out, wrapping around Daniel's legs. The alien girl inside stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, revealing a glow of gold that seemed to pierce right through him. She inhaled sharply, her chest rising as she sat up. Her gaze locked onto Daniel, and for a moment, the world stopped. He couldn't breathe. She was awake. Behind her, the other pods began to hum, lights activating one by one. Daniel stumbled back, his heart pounding so hard he thought it would break his ribs. The girls were waking up, all of them. Their delicate fingers twitched, their hair shifted, their eyes opened slowly, each a different, dazzling color. They looked around with confusion, their expressions changing from calm sleep to startled awareness that the emerald-skinned girl stood, taller than Daniel by half a head. She stepped forward gracefully, her golden eyes fixed on him. She tilted her head slightly, as if studying him. Her lips moved, and a soft sound filled the air, a language he didn't know. The tone was melodic, sharp and flowing like music. Daniel's throat went dry. He had no idea what to say. He had no idea what he had just done. One moment he was a man with $1, the next he was standing in front of 6 alien princesses who had just awoken from their long sleep. He whispered to himself, "What? What have I found?" And though he didn't understand their words, he could feel their eyes burning into him, heavy with meaning. They weren't just waking. They were recognizing him. Asterisk. Daniel's heart thundered in his chest as the alien princess with emerald skin took another step toward him. Her glowing golden eyes studied every inch of him, sharp yet calm, as though she were searching for answers written on his face. The other pods continued to release steam, one after another, filling the container with a cold mist. Soon, 6 alien girls stood awake, each one more stunning than the last. Their different colors made them seem like living jewels: blue, violet, crimson, turquoise, and silver. Each of them swayed slightly as if regaining strength after a long slumber. Daniel stumbled back until his shoulders hit the metal frame of the container door. He wanted to run, but his legs wouldn't move. His mind screamed at him that this was impossible, that none of it could be real. And yet the hum of alien machinery and the warmth in their glowing eyes told him otherwise. The Emerald Princess tilted her head again and spoke. Her voice was musical, smooth like a harp string, but he could not understand a single word. Then the crimson-skinned girl stepped forward, her violet eyes flickering with intelligence. She touched a glowing panel on the wall of the container, and suddenly a pulse of light rippled outward. Daniel shielded his eyes. When he blinked them open again, he heard her voice differently. "Identify," she said in broken but clear English, her accent alien but understandable. Daniel gasped. They could speak. I'm Daniel," he stammered, his voice shaking. The Emerald Princess glanced at the others, their faces shifting with recognition at the sound of his words. The Crimson One nodded slowly, repeating, "Daniel." She stepped closer, her movements both graceful and intimidating. "How long sleep?" she asked, her words halting. "I don't know," Daniel said, his hands raised as if to show he meant no harm. "This container, it was abandoned. I bought it today. For $1. The turquoise-skinned girl with silver hair frowned, speaking quickly in their own tongue. The sound was fast and sharp, filled with tension. The Crimson One translated, her eyes never leaving Daniel. "You own this vessel?" Daniel swallowed hard. "I don't own. You. I just opened it." The Emerald Princess lifted her hand, and the others grew silent. She stepped right up to him, so close he could see the faint glowing veins under her skin. Her golden eyes locked on his, unblinking. Then she spoke a single word that chilled him to his bones. "Chosen," the others whispered among themselves, their strange voices overlapping like a chorus. Daniel shook his head. No, I don't know what that means. I didn't choose anything. I just opened the door." But the way they looked at him told a different story. The Emerald Princess touched her chest lightly and spoke with calm authority. "Princess Lysera," she said, pointing at herself. She then gestured at the others one by one, naming them in their melodic language, each name like music. Finally she pointed at him. "Daniel, chosen." His chest tightened. They weren't just alien girls. They were princesses, royalty. And somehow, by opening their prison, he had bound himself to them. A low rumble echoed in the distance. The ground beneath them trembled faintly. Daniel frowned and looked over his shoulder. The shipping yard was quiet, but he suddenly felt the weight of eyes on him. The violet-skinned princess hissed something sharp in her tongue. The Crimson One translated, her words low and urgent. "They come. Who comes?" Daniel asked, fear tightening his throat. Before she could answer, the turquoise princess touched the panel again. A section of the container wall shifted, revealing a glowing display. Strange symbols danced across it, and in the corner Daniel saw something horrifying. Several red dots were moving fast toward their position. The Emerald Princess grabbed his wrist suddenly, her grip strong but not painful. "Run," she said in her melodic English. Now, Daniel didn't think twice. He turned and sprinted toward the open yard, his boots pounding the gravel. The princesses followed, moving with startling grace despite their recent awakening. Their glowing skin shimmered in the fading light as they ran, their hair flowing like rivers of silver and flame. Behind them, engines roared. Daniel glanced back and froze. Vehicles were pulling into the yard, sleek, black, and armed with mounted weapons. Men in dark armor jumped out, carrying rifles that hummed with energy. They weren't here by accident. They had been watching the container, waiting for someone to open it. The Crimson Princess raised her hand, and a faint shield of light flickered to life in front of them. Energy blasts struck it, sending sparks scattering across the ground. Daniel gasped as the shield bent but held. The princesses shouted to one another in their language, forming a protective arc around him. Daniel dropped behind a rusted crate, his breath ragged. His single dollar had bought more than he could have ever imagined. He wasn't just standing in a shipping yard anymore. He was in the middle of a war he didn't understand, protecting 6 alien princesses that the galaxy clearly wanted back. The Emerald Princess crouched beside him, her golden eyes glowing fiercely. "Daniel," she said firmly, "no fear. With us." He swallowed hard, nodding as blaster fire lit the night sky. For the first time in his life, he realized something terrifying and beautiful. He wasn't alone anymore. Asterisk gunfire echoed through the rusted shipping yard, each blast lighting the air with deadly streaks of energy. Daniel pressed his back against a corroded crate, his chest heaving. He had never seen weapons like these, not even in movies. The sound alone was enough to make his bones tremble. The 6 princesses, though still weak from their long sleep, moved like a trained unit, forming a half-circle around him. Their glowing skin shimmered in the haze, their eyes sharp with determination. The crimson-skinned princess raised her hand, and a barrier of flickering light shielded them from another volley of blasts. Sparks exploded across the ground, scattering gravel and dust. The turquoise princess crouched beside a broken pipe, her fingers glowing as she touched the metal. In an instant, the pipe twisted unnaturally, bending into a jagged spear that floated in her hands. Daniel's jaw dropped. She had shaped the steel like clay. The Emerald Princess Lysera barked something in their alien tongue, her voice commanding. The others obeyed instantly. The Violet Princess leapt onto a container stack with inhuman grace, her eyes blazing as she unleashed a wave of violet energy. The soldiers below were thrown back like ragdolls, their weapons clattering uselessly against the ground. Daniel dared a glance at the advancing vehicles. Black armored trucks, sleek and angular, rolled forward with headlights blazing. They bore no markings, no insignias. Whoever these men were, they weren't government. Their armor gleamed with strange technology, too advanced, too precise. "They're not from here," Daniel muttered under his breath, though part of him already knew the truth. Whoever had hidden the container had been guarding something far bigger than scrap. And now these people had come to reclaim it. One of the armored men barked into a unit, his voice amplified. "Capture them alive. The human, too." Daniel's stomach turned cold. They wanted him. Not just the princesses. The blue-skinned princess grabbed his arm and pulled him to his feet, her eyes glowing like twin sapphires. "Daniel, move!" she said firmly in broken English. He stumbled forward, nearly tripping as they ran through the maze of containers. The princesses moved with an elegance that seemed impossible for beings who had just awakened. Their steps were silent, their movements coordinated. It was as though they had trained their entire lives for survival. A blast tore through a container to Daniel's left, spraying molten metal. He ducked, his heart pounding, and followed Lysera as she led them toward the far side of the yard. For the first time, he noticed how her golden eyes never wavered, even as chaos raged around her. She wasn't afraid. She was leading. Suddenly, a shadow dropped from above. One of the armored men had leapt from a crane, landing directly in their path. His helmet shimmered with a glowing visor, and in his hand was a blade made of crackling energy. He swung it down at Daniel. Daniel froze. He couldn't fight. He had no weapon, no training. The world slowed as the blade cut the air. Before it could reach him, Lysera moved. She stepped between Daniel and the soldier with inhuman speed, raising her hand. Golden light erupted from her palm, forming a shield that caught the strike. Sparks sprayed in all directions as the blade screeched against her barrier. Her face tightened with strain, but she held her ground. The Crimson Princess shouted, and a bolt of red energy slammed into the soldier's chest, hurling him backward into a pile of crates. The impact shook the ground, and the man lay still. Daniel's throat tightened. These weren't helpless girls. They were warriors. They ran again, turning a corner and reaching the chain-link fence at the edge of the yard. The Violet Princess slashed her glowing fingers across it, and the metal dissolved into ash. They slipped through into the dark field beyond. Behind them, engines roared louder. More vehicles entered the yard, searchlights sweeping the area. A voice boomed through a loudspeaker, cold and commanding. "You cannot escape. Return the royal bloodlines, and you may live." Daniel stumbled in the grass, his lungs burning. He turned to Lysera, desperation in his voice. "What do they want? Who are you?" Lysera stopped, her golden eyes meeting his. Her face was calm, almost sorrowful. "We are heirs. Last of worlds. Destroyed. They hunt us for power. We need you." Her words rattled inside him. Last of their worlds, heirs? The pieces clicked together painfully. These weren't just alien princesses. They were survivors of something greater, a war he couldn't begin to imagine. And now, because he had opened their prison, he was part of it. The Blue Princess touched his shoulder gently. "Daniel, you. Safe with us." He wanted to believe her, but the sound of pursuing engines reminded him how fragile safety was. He had bought a container for $1, and now the fate of 6 alien princesses, and maybe something much larger, was tied to him. As they moved deeper into the night, Lysera turned once more to him. "Daniel," she said softly, "no longer accident. You are chosen." Her words echoed in his chest, burning like fire. Chosen. Not just a mistake. Not just luck. Chosen. And as the searchlight swept the field behind them, Daniel realized one terrible truth. His life as an ordinary man had ended the moment he opened that container. From here on, he belonged to a story written far beyond Earth. Asterisk. The night air was sharp and cool as Daniel stumbled through the open field, following the 6 alien princesses. His legs burned, his chest ached, but he didn't dare stop. Behind them, the dark armored vehicles prowled the shipping yard, their searchlights slicing through the mist like hungry eyes. Shouts and engines echoed across the land, but for now, they had slipped away. Lysera, the emerald-skinned princess with golden eyes, led the group with silent confidence. Her long steps carried her across the uneven ground without faltering, her gaze scanning the horizon for danger. Daniel struggled to keep up, his boots sinking into damp soil. But every time he slowed, one of the princesses grabbed his arm and urged him forward. After what felt like hours, they reached the edge of the field where an old, abandoned farmhouse leaned against the night. Its roof sagged, its windows were broken, but it offered shelter. The turquoise-skinned princess pushed open the door with a soft crack. Dust swirled inside as they entered the shadowy interior. Daniel collapsed onto a broken chair, panting. Sweat dripped down his face, his hands shaking. He looked at the 6 glowing figures that now surrounded him. They were breathtaking even in the dim light, their alien beauty undeniable. But beneath their graceful forms was a weight of sadness, an exhaustion that went beyond their recent awakening. Lysera turned toward him. Safe. Here. For now. Her voice was soft, but her eyes told him she wasn't certain. Daniel rubbed his temples. What's going on? Who are those men? Why do they want you and why me? The Crimson Princess sat on the edge of a dusty table, her violet eyes locked on him. Hunters. Servants of Empire. They seek us. For bloodlines. We are heirs. Princesses of 6 worlds. All destroyed. Daniel frowned, his stomach sinking. Destroyed by them? Lysera nodded slowly. Empire crush. Our people. Gone. We hidden. Long sleep, you. Opened. The blue-skinned princess crouched in front of him, her glowing eyes gentle. Daniel, you not enemy. You key. Daniel's laugh was bitter, shaky. Me, I'm nobody. I was broke enough to waste $1 on a rusty box. I can't fight soldiers with laser guns. I can't protect. All of you. His voice cracked as he gestured at them, their radiant forms unreal in the broken farmhouse. I'm just one man. Lysera stepped closer, her presence commanding yet calming. She knelt slightly, meeting his eyes at his level. Chosen not for fight, she said firmly. Chosen for bond, Daniel blinked. Bond? The Violet Princess spoke, her words slower, careful. Our bloodlines need anchor. Without, we fade. Machine hit us, kept us alive. Now awake. Need bond. You touched vessel. It chose you. His chest tightened. He remembered the warmth of the pod, the way his hand had rested against the glass, the flicker of symbols. It hadn't just opened, it had chosen him. The silver-haired princess with turquoise skin spoke next, her voice almost like a whisper. Without anchor. We die with you. We live. Daniel felt the weight of their words press down on him. 6 alien princesses, the last of their kind, depending on him for survival. He was no hero, no warrior. But as he looked at them, at their glowing eyes, their regal poise, the sorrow carved into their beauty, he felt something shift inside him. He swallowed hard. If I'm really the key, if you really need me, then I won't run. The Crimson Princess tilted her head, her lips curling into the faintest smile. Brave, human. For a brief moment, silence filled the farmhouse, heavy with unspoken trust. But then the Violet Princess stiffened. Her eyes glowed brighter, as if sensing something beyond the walls. They track us, she whispered. Not safe here. Daniel stood quickly, his heart pounding. Then where do we go? Lysera pointed toward the horizon. Old starship, buried, our last chance. The word sent a chill down his spine. A starship? On Earth? The turquoise princess moved toward the doorway, her hand glowing faintly as she sealed the broken wood with hardened metal. We move soon. Rest now. Daniel needs strength. He sat back down, trying to steady his breath. Rest was impossible with the weight of their fate pressing on his shoulders. He glanced at Lysera, who stood tall in the moonlight pouring through the broken roof. She wasn't just beautiful, she radiated authority, the kind that came from leading people, from carrying the burden of survival. For the first time, Daniel realized why they called him Chosen. Not because he was strong, not because he was brave, but because he was human. And to them, that meant something powerful. As the night deepened, Daniel closed his eyes for a moment, though sleep wouldn't come. Outside, in the distance, faint lights moved across the field searching. Hunting. Inside, 6 alien princesses watched over him, their eyes glowing softly in the dark. Their whispers filled the air, words he couldn't understand, but the tone was clear. They were planning, preparing, and trusting him to stand with them. And though fear still gripped his heart, a spark of resolve flickered in his chest. He had opened the container for $1, but what he had truly bought was a war he couldn't yet imagine. The farmhouse creaked with every gust of night wind. Daniel sat on the floor, leaning against the cracked wall, listening to the alien princesses whisper among themselves in their fluid language. Their voices blended like music, low and steady, but the urgency in their tone was clear. They knew the hunters were closing in. Lysera, the emerald-skinned princess, broke away from the group and crouched beside him. Her golden eyes glowed softly in the dark, reflecting the moonlight slipping through the roof. "We move now," she said in her careful English. Daniel rubbed his eyes, exhaustion weighing on him. "Move where?" "There's nowhere safe." Lysera shook her head. "Ship buried, hidden before. Sleep, if we reach. We escape." Daniel blinked. "You're saying there's a spaceship buried out here? On Earth?" The Crimson Princess stepped forward, her violet eyes hard as steel. "Yes, last vessel of our houses. Hidden when Empire burned worlds. Without ship, we are prey. With ship, we fight." The Turquoise Princess raised her hand, and a faint map of glowing lines appeared in the air. The farmhouse lit up with its pale glow, revealing a set of coordinates not far from where they sat. Daniel's stomach knotted. This wasn't some random accident. Everything about their awakening, even their presence on Earth, had been planned long before he was born. Lysera rose to her full height, her presence commanding the room. "Daniel, you come. Ship bond. Needs you too," he swallowed. He didn't know if he was ready for any of this, but the look in her eyes told him he had no choice. "All right," he whispered. "Show me." They slipped out of the farmhouse into the cool night air. The stars glittered above like shards of broken glass. The field stretched out before them, silver with dew. Daniel followed as the princesses moved quickly and silently, their glowing skin marking them like walking beacons. He kept glancing over his shoulder, half expecting armored trucks to appear any moment. They reached the base of an old hill where the ground looked disturbed, as though something massive had once been dragged into the earth. The Violet Princess raised her arms, her fingers glowing with violet fire. The soil shifted, breaking apart, dust rising into the air. Daniel stepped back in shock as the ground split open. Beneath the layers of dirt and rock, smooth metal gleamed. It was no ruin, it was alive with faint pulses of light. The Turquoise Princess knelt and placed her hand against the surface. With a low rumble, the ground peeled back further, revealing the shape of a buried ship. Daniel's jaw dropped. The vessel was vast, its hull marked with flowing alien symbols that glowed faintly like embers. It was sleek, elegant, nothing like human machines. Even buried, it radiated power as though waiting for its masters to return. That's a starship," Daniel breathed, awe washing over him. "On Earth, all this time?" The silver-haired Turquoise Princess smiled faintly. "Our cradle. Our last hope. Now. Yours too." The Crimson Princess approached a panel embedded in the hull. She pressed her hand against it, and the metal shimmered before sliding open. A ramp unfolded, glowing faint blue. Warm light poured out, spilling across the damp earth. The princesses moved up the ramp one by one. Lysera stopped halfway and turned, her golden eyes locking onto Daniel. "Come," she commanded. His legs trembled as he stepped forward. He had never even seen a spaceship in person, and now he was about to step into one hidden for who knew how many centuries. His boot touched the ramp, and for a moment it pulsed faintly under him, like the vessel itself was aware of his presence. Inside, the air was clean, almost sweet. Crystalline panels glowed softly, casting the corridor in shifting colors. Daniel's breath caught. It was like stepping into the heart of some living being. The walls seemed to hum, the vibrations syncing with his pulse. The blue-skinned princess gestured at a central chamber ahead. "Heart of ship," she said softly. Daniel followed them inside. At the center stood a crystalline console, its surface swirling with alien script. Lysera touched it, and the symbols flared to life. The ship responded instantly. Lights brightened, the hum deepened, and the air grew warmer. Then something unexpected happened. The console pulsed and projected a beam of light that shot directly at Daniel. He stumbled back, shielding his eyes, but the light wrapped around him like threads of fire. He gasped as images flashed in his mind: stars, battles, burning worlds, and finally, 6 thrones standing empty. When the light faded, Daniel was on his knees, panting. Lysera knelt beside him, her hand steadying his shoulder. "You see," she said softly. "Now you understand." He looked at her, his voice barely a whisper. "I saw everything. Your war, your fall. And me?" The Crimson Princess stepped forward, her gaze sharp. "The ship accepts you. You are anchor. Without you, it cannot fly." Daniel's heart hammered. Somehow the ship itself had bound him to them. He wasn't just chosen by accident, he was now tied to their survival. But before he could speak again, the ship shuddered. An alarm of alien tones echoed through the chamber. The turquoise princess' expression darkened. "Hunters," she said grimly. "They found us." Daniel's blood ran cold as Lysera rose to her feet, her golden eyes blazing. "Then we fight. With ship, asterisk." The starship pulsed like a waking beast, its lights blazing brighter with each passing second. Daniel gripped the edge of the console, his breath ragged as alarms echoed through the chamber. The alien princesses surrounded him, their radiant forms tense, their glowing eyes sharp with readiness. Outside, the ground shook under the roar of approaching engines. The hunters had found them. Lysera raised her hand, golden light spilling from her palm. The ship responded, panels sliding open, seats rising from the floor, and weapons powering up. She turned to Daniel, her gaze fierce. "You must stand with us. Ship will not move without you." Daniel's chest tightened. "I don't even know what I'm doing." The crimson-skinned princess stepped closer, her violet eyes blazing. "You feel ship. Trust it. It chose you." He closed his eyes, pressing his hand to the console. At once, warmth surged into him, racing through his veins like fire. He gasped as symbols filled his vision, flowing and rearranging until he understood them instinctively. The ship wasn't asking him to control it. It was asking him to accept it, to become part of it. Outside, the first blast struck. The ground quaked as energy beams slammed against the buried hull. The turquoise princess hissed something sharp in her tongue, and the ship's shields flared to life. Blue light shimmered around them, scattering the hunters' fire. Daniel's pulse raced. "They're going to tear this place apart." Lysera placed her hand over his on the console. Her golden eyes locked with his. "Then we rise." With a shudder, the ship stirred. Soil and stone fell away as the engines roared. The ground split open as the vessel lifted, shaking the earth like a storm. Daniel felt the surge of power rushing through him, through the princesses, through every glowing surface. He wasn't piloting it, it was breathing with him. The hunters below scrambled, their trucks spinning as they fired upward. The ship rose higher, the shields flaring bright as blasts rained against it. One of the hunters shouted orders, their voices lost beneath the thunder of the engines. The violet princess spread her hands, and the ship's weapons locked on. Beams of violet light streaked from the hull, striking the armored vehicles. Fire erupted across the field as machines tore apart. The hunters scattered, their rifles useless against the living starship. Daniel staggered. overwhelmed by the storm of sound and light. But the ship steadied him, its hum syncing with his heartbeat, its strength becoming his. He realized now what the bond meant, not chains, not a burden, but unity. The princesses needed him, and he needed them. One final blast struck the shields, shaking the vessel. Daniel clenched his teeth, pushing his will into the ship. "Hold!" he shouted without thinking. The ship answered, its shields glowing brighter. Unbreakable dot with a scream of engines. The starship broke free of the earth, soaring into the sky. The farmhouse, the fields, the shipping yard, all of it shrank beneath them. The hunters were left in flames, their weapons powerless. Inside, silence fell. Daniel gasped for air, his body trembling, but the console under his hand pulsed with calm light. Slowly, he looked at the princesses. Lysera smiled faintly, her golden eyes soft for the first time since he'd met her. "Daniel, you are anchor. With you, we live." The Crimson Princess leaned back against a glowing wall, her face tired but proud. "Human, stronger than we thought." The turquoise one knelt beside him, her voice gentle. "Ship listens only because of you. You saved us." Daniel swallowed hard, his throat tight. "I didn't save anyone. You all fought, I just—" He trailed off, unsure of how to explain what he felt. Lysera touched his shoulder, steady and warm. "Together. That is the truth. Alone, we fall. With you, we rise." For the first time, Daniel believed it. He had been a man with nothing, $1 in his pocket and no future. But that single choice, that one impulse to raise his hand at an auction, had brought him here to the heart of a starship, surrounded by 6 princesses who had no one else. The ship pierced the clouds, stars opening before them like an endless ocean. Daniel stared out, his chest tight with awe. He had never imagined leaving Earth, never imagined being part of something greater. Yet here he was, no longer ordinary, no longer forgotten. Lysera stood beside him, her golden eyes reflecting the stars. "This is beginning," she said softly. "Empire will come. War waits, but now we are not alone." Daniel nodded slowly, resolve hardening in his chest. Whatever battles lay ahead, whatever dangers waited in the galaxy, he would face them. Not because he was strong, but because he had been chosen, and because now he had something to fight for. The starship roared into the heavens, 6 alien princesses at his side, their fates bound together by chance, by survival, and by something far deeper. Daniel took one last look at the shrinking Earth and whispered, "Let's see where this takes us." And for the first time in his life, the unknown didn't frighten him. It called to him,